So we all know that quantum computing is a new type of computational technology which potentially can unlock a lot of interesting applications which will disrupt and transform a lot of industries. Everything is excellent, but we are not there yet. And current state of these quantum machines, they are already there. You can use them, you can access them via cloud, but those machines are very prone to various environmental effects and influence, and that spoils your computations when you run something on them. And these are various types of noise, and also on this, at the same time, these machines actually are still very tiny and fragile. And moreover, this noise makes them even less effective on the larger scale, so you effectively can use only like few quantum bits when you run your applications. And that's a big problem in the field, because if you want to run actually one of those like prospective, interesting applications, then you don't really have a infrastructure and hardware to run those applications on. And we decided, on one hand, people actually are improving those quantum computers every day. So we have new and new models which unlock more computational capabilities, more qubits, more operations that we can run on those machines. However, this process moves slowly. And apparently, there are a lot of interesting ideas how you can improve those machines by using software. And that's what we do. We improve performance of quantum computers using our proprietary software, particularly our proprietary technology which we embed in the so-called quantum middleware stack. This is a stack between applications and hardware, which helps to optimize the application such that it runs optimally on the specific quantum hardware. And that's where we sit. And we decided to tackle this big problem because initially we were focused more on application side, and we understood that it's very hard to run anything on application before you actually have working computers. So that's why we focused on that very hard and challenging problem, but we have ideas and technology how to improve it dramatically. So namely, our technology in some applications allows to gain 100x improvement in comparison to alternatives.
So to wrap it up, you're helping the quantum computers to be more efficient with the help of the software you're building. Am I correct here?
Exactly.
Awesome. How did the idea for this project originate? Because you're saying that, yeah, we want to solve this problem. So was it from your previous experience, from your previous work, or from the work of your co-founder? And also how and why this idea has evolved afterwards?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So because such things, they do not originate in vacuum. Of course, I have some background, my co-founder has some specific background, and both of these backgrounds complement to what we are doing right now. So in the past, I worked a lot in simulations of quantum systems. I used to work in quantum condensed matter physics, where I literally used state-of-the-art numerical approaches in order to simulate quantum systems on the classical device. And that kind of embeds a specific way of thinking of those scientists who work in this field. And currently, the situation in which we are right now is very similar to where I worked 10 years ago in physics. So we have those tiny devices which are very limited in capabilities, and we want to do something more effective on them. So effectively, what we developed is a new numerical technique which allows us to run more complex computations on smaller machines, which are of much smaller scale than is necessary for those larger computations.
I know that you were working in corporate sector for a long period of time, and before you were working as a scientist. So what moved you on to start your own startup? What is the motivation?
I need to say that I was thinking about startup when I still was a scientist at Weizmann Institute of Science. And there, particularly in that institute, I attended the entrepreneurial program where it was designed particularly for scientists, and they invited various alumni from the institute who started their startups. For example, we had lecture from Mobileye, that's one of the biggest company in the world working on the computer vision for autonomous cars. And
Wow.
and other founders like that. So it was super inspiring. So I had already like listed a number of ideas which I can use to start a startup. And there was a number of moments where I really had something interesting in my hands to start it. But I always kind of wanted to gain a little bit more experience. And the role in which I was in the corporate world, it was actually very exciting also from perspective that it was about kind of developing internal startups in the company. So I gained a lot of experience in like how to navigate that into the right technology, which potentially can be commercialized, how to pass through the commercialization stages, how actually to generate revenue from nothing. So in the end, we actually had multi-million revenue in our unit, literally starting from nothing. So all that actually brought me quite a lot of confidence when we started finally Haiqu. And right now, I understand that a lot of those like risks that probably other startups have, I kind of can go around those risks because I already had those in my previous world. But anyway, if you are younger, if you don't have that corporate experience, certainly worth starting. It's not worth to think about the one idea as the only idea you will come up with. So in the end, you will have tons of ideas, and that will be hard to choose the right one that you want to spend like 10 years of your life on. So it's important to start as soon as possible, experiment, fail fast, experiment again, start another idea, and at some point it will start to grow. So you will see it.
Cool. Just to support your words, I want to share that in the form of the Seeds of Bravery, one of the projects is Science to Business, which helps startups and scientists to learn how to commercialize their technologies, learn how to go forward and to move forward to the stage you are right now. So please apply and please get to know more. And if to look back to the milestones in your work which you had, or the roadmap which you had before, what were the key milestones in your startup development? If to name few?
Yeah, I would say we're still very early stage startup. Right now, we are on the stage where we already have a developed technology. It works. We proved that it allows to gain significant improvement in a number of benchmarks, industry grade benchmarks. And we now are piloting this technology with a number of prospective customers and use cases of our partners. So it was first idea, then a small prototype, then a patent. That patent allowed us some freedom to operate in this space. Then we moved forward with more advanced demo that we created and kind of a closed white paper which we presented during due diligence process in the fundraising. And as we fundraise, we scale the team in order now to commercialize, let's say, that technology, to move it from the early prototypes phase to something that can be run on the scale for different applications. And as we passed that point, we started to interact with customers.
Mm-hmm. And I know that prototyping is a really like a hard and both interesting part of hypothesis validation, especially for startups, when you don't want to put a lot of resources into that. And if you can recall or share with us how the prototype looked for you in this case, because you are working with the quantum computing, it's a deep tech technology. And I think that prototyping is totally different of what B2B or B2C applications are looking.
I would say the main difference is that we are not speaking here about like user experience prototype or like non-functional visual prototypes. So it's harder to communicate. In this sense, the prototyping phase meant that we had this technological idea, we implemented that in the code, and we applied that code to a specific benchmark problem. And a result was, let's say, a plot or a few plots that we were able to, basically a graph that we were able to showcase to a number of stakeholders, saying that here is an input algorithm, here is how this input algorithm looks after execution through our through our technology. In this case, it's very similar to what you do in academic research. The only thing, when you write research paper, the only thing that you don't really have time to write the full research paper with all the derivation and all the proofs. So here it was much faster. It was more on the level of like, here is an idea, here how we prove that. And of course, we had to be rigorous enough to show that we don't have any flaws. And with the next stages, we also invested quite a lot into building the whole theoretical background to what we do.
I think this is a really good insight for deep tech startup founders who will be listening to us, that probably you can start with a prototype and test your hypothesis early on and do the technical feasibility study before moving on to very huge models and final product.
Exactly. And I would say a lot of deep tech startups and founders that I met, like who come from academia, they also are thinking in the way that they first need to write 5 papers before they actually move into production. I would say that that's not really necessary. If you are in such dynamic field like quantum computing, you can actually prove some things ad hoc and showcase results which are more practical. And but you need, of course, to have strong arguments why this particular result actually is.
We've built a technology helping to automate IP licensing for brands and AI tools. We started out as a digital art platform. We were not focusing on licensing to any kind of industry like we do now. We started kind of with a smaller market in that case. And in early 2022, when we've received our first investment, it was our pre-seed round, backed by seed venture partners and Adrian Slivotsky. We've started building exactly the product, and it was a bit of an unfortunate timing that just 2 months after the launch, which was actually showing excellent results, and we had over 500 artists joining the platform, as a whole blockchain market went down and the recession started. So for artists, it was not enough to provide a platform which would cover legal, technical, financial, sales components. It was also a market situation which drove people a bit away from buying art, especially for personal reasons. I mean, not for business, of course. And we have seen that there is a time for change. And we, at that moment, got selected after 7 rounds and spotlighted by Meta and L'Oreal Group. So it was early 2023 when we realized that we are definitely pivoting from working only with digital artists or with galleries and museums building digitalized NFT collections to a full B2B tool, focused more on kind of more established market players, whether they would be design studios, gaming companies, music brands, art or fashion organizations, somewhere where, again, the impact and effect which we could give was more immediate, more urgent, and more clear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that, first of all, doing pivots is a really brave move, but also it is a very successful move when we look at big companies, big tech and large startups. One of the cases that I love is Brex from Brazil, fintech company that actually got into YC, and they started to do VR headset tool without any experience in VR and on the hype cycle, of course, of the technology. But nevertheless, then they realized that maybe timing is not right, and pivoted to fintech, the same team from VR to fintech solution, right? And now they are multi-billion companies. So it's indeed, a heads up to many founders to look for opportunities, to look for a big market to work on and potentially, driving a bit towards the market that is maybe a bit more lucrative, right, to extent.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I do hope that in the coming year we would be able to release simpler version of the product specifically for single creators, since of course our goal of empowering artists didn't go anywhere. It's just evolved more into B2B side. So we are currently working actually with 16 different companies and communities, where that would be, kind of a leader of the community who is providing and supporting artists. So we are kind of doing the same, just focusing more on bigger communities and entities rather than on every single person. So in some way, I would say that it's not a classical pivot when it's, one thing to a completely different one. It's rather a natural evolving of what we started building, and it came to us quite naturally, deriving from the market market needs and the feedback we were getting from customers. So I would say that another component here was also that we have two more co-founders, Alex and Anton, who joined us a bit later, actually in 2021, and who brought with them incredible experience, both from Amazon and from their businesses in AR, VR, and AI. So actually our whole technical team was built on the incredibly strong background in technology. But unfortunately, we are living in realities of being a Ukrainian team. And in September 2023, our co-founder, Anton Velichko, heroically died in the military ranks. So he was our CTO. And of course, it also led to us changing the technical lead in the team and understanding that to keep the vision, we still need to progress and to kind of bring the legacy of what Anton was building with us and evolve it into something else.
Well, really, really sorry to hear that that heartbreaking story, unfortunately, and my condolences on that. Let's perhaps dive into early days, or try to switch to EO incubator and the values that Chuck with the team provided to you, and also your fundraising round, right? Having seed venture partners, one of the prominent VC funds in Ukraine, and also Adrian Slavodsky, right? One of the, I'm not sure if you can call him super angel. I don't know how much investments. Yeah, right, the super angel. Can you provide a little bit information on your initial steps, benefiting from the EO and moving toward the first fundraising round pre-seed?
Yeah, I would say that when we came to EO, we were among just one or two, maybe two teams who were very kind of pre-idea stage even. So it was more a direction to which we were looking. Like, of course, that's understanding now. But back then, when I was pitching first time, I was sure that we have it all settled. I was like, here is the market, here is the team, here is the product. And then we started calculating how it actually is, and got a lot of feedback. I would say that if every entrepreneur in Ukraine could have had this background which EO is given, then we would definitely match the opportunities level which are in United States or UK, for instance. Because to be honest, it's definitely a very big gap which we currently have to jump to kind of match up with with opportunities which startups are being given in the United States, especially if we take the entrepreneurial centers, campuses. Back then, especially when we just started in 2020, EO was the only program available. Like right now, there are so many options, and there is also YAPS, there is also a lot of things done in Lviv specifically in this area. But for me and Olga, coming from Kharkiv, it was kind of zero to none options back then. So EO definitely shaped us in the vision and on how we should be taking the business, from the start. Helped us incredibly with market research and with understanding on, that back then it was not enough to build a marketplace for digital art. We needed to start with something more immediate and tangible. That's how we met Anton and Alex, who already had incredible experience and the first AR app built in Ukraine called Simo AR. And we basically leveraged the network and powers of Anton's and Alex's experience to build virtual galleries app, which is currently not that active, but at some moments it used to be. Like, we had 17,000 downloads and we had over 70,000 people interacting with our galleries, both in web and in mobile version, which helped us to attract museums, galleries, hundreds of artists, and also to get support from Ukrainian Startup Fund. Early back then, I remember that we got this first 25K grant to build a website and to build a portal where, the whole commercial part can even be realized in addition to virtual galleries, which we already had. So I would say, yeah, without the support, I'm not really sure that we would be, especially coming from already having multiple companies as founders, it would have been much harder for us to take the leap of faith and to switch fully in our focus to building a startup instead of, keeping the nice and warm careers and working, existing businesses in that case, if not EO and USF.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that for early stage startups, support is critical. And it's so nice to see many people and organizations first, giving back to the community, entrepreneurial community, especially those one who succeeded and grew businesses. But also it's nice to see that in different regions of Ukraine, in Kiev, in Lviv, and in a couple of other cities, we have a flourishing ecosystem, more and more programs on educating or providing some educational knowledge to be in incubators and acceleration programs, right? So it's essential and it's critical, but it's not just about the business expertise. It's also about some fuel and money, right? And you've been able to not only be in these programs, but relatively quickly raise first pre-seed round, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell a bit more about your experience raising that? How much it took in terms of time, and how you managed to have Super Angel and one of the most prominent VCs
Are you
on
asking
board?
specifically about the pre-seed? Because in total, up till the current moment, we've actually extended our pre-seed twice and done a total of 1.4 million. So our initial pre-seed kind of got evolving and extending. I would say that for
Tell us more. Tell us about the whole experience of fundraising. It's
first,
interesting to hear. Sure.
first checks are always the hardest because it has to be not only somebody believing in you personally, in your vision, in your market, but also someone who would be there to kind of do some hand holding at the early stages, help you with introductions, working on business model, maybe working on the tech side. So for us, I think that Seed Venture Partners was a quite obvious connection, since we've actually known the partners of it since we went actually both to Sigma and to Ideasoft for consultancy and initial recommendations on the blockchain components of the platform we were building. So it was quite an immediate connection. And once they launched the fund, we've been among the first 3 portfolio companies announced at the launch. With Adrian, I was introduced by EO team, specifically by Charles. And I think it's up till this day, the most amazing person we could even get attracted at the pre-seed stage. Adrian helped me personally immensely in growing as a founder, in understanding that, there can be a lot of tough decisions to do, because we also had to, switch the team at the moment when we were doing the pivot, because half of our team was coming from artistic background, and switching to B2B SaaS, very tech heavy solution was a bit of a punch to our whole team, to be honest.
Who are watching this, and we communicate through our laptops, smartphones, we have our power banks in our pockets, and all of that is actually created out of material. All of that is created out of metals. And if we think about it, to produce only one smartphone, you need to dig about half of the ton of ore, so of material out of the ground. And so it's a first problem. So we have a huge need in our day-to-day tools that we use all the time. And on the other hand, if we want to have a green transition, if we want to have enough batteries, enough storage, we need to have that. And the problem that these both needs are actually in conflict right now. And the conflict is in the idea that, before 2030, we're going to have about 12 trillion shortage between what we have and what we need. So between supply and demand in minerals. With that in mind, we started thinking how we can help in that, how we can change the status quo, because if we just continue as it is, it will be not enough material. Of course, it will be recycling of batteries and upselling, all of that, but it's still not enough. So our problem is quite simple. We need to produce more materials, more minerals in the end of the day. I mean, if we're talking, for example, about metals, about copper, the production has to be doubled. It was never done in history of humankind. So it's a huge, huge, huge challenge. And with that in mind, we have started to bring in AI and more data to exploration. Because if you look at the life cycle of a mine, Most of the time of a mine, which it takes this life cycle, is usually 12 years. About 8 to 10 years of it is just exploration, because it's really hard. It's time intensive. It's uncertain. People put a lot of capital there, and there's a lot of politics inside companies involved, politics inside countries involved. So we decided to shorten this period of time, at least to 2 years instead of 10. And with that, we will save a lot of money to companies who want to do exploration, and we will help to actually put more minerals and more material in the market, which actually will ease this problem between supply and demand that we have right now. So, what our viewers have to understand about the problem, right now we are moving really fast to a catastrophe, to a huge problem in which we will not have enough material. And our solution is to bring more data and more knowledge and more AI towards actually finding new deposits and helping humanity in a green transition. So that's basically, the problem and the solution in short.
Got it. And you just outlined that there is a 10-year of the exploration of these resources right now. Yep. And you want to shorten it up to 2 years. So with the help of what? How do you do this? And which part of the whole exploration process do you make shorter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to understand the technology, we use the metaphor, and the metaphor, you can choose whatever you like. It's rather the lasagna or layered cake. So we basically absorb about 52 layers of data. It comes from satellites, from ground sensors. Some data is provided by our clients. And basically we layer on top of each other. And basically our AI then goes through it and do a prediction. So if you think about how it's done right now, geologists would, underline the map or unveil the map on their table, see the map, and then try to pinpoint locations in which they believe there were geological predictions million years ago that actually formed some kind of a mineral. We can talk about metal, or we can talk about heat flow for geothermal. It really doesn't matter. So geologists trying to, I have a geological degree, one of our teachers said that, geology is like solving a really cold case in terms of a crime. There is no evidence, there's nothing there already, but you have to understand what happened there just by understanding, something which was, discoveries were done by others. So it's really, really cold case. It's a case, which was done like million years ago. And geology, that's why it takes so much time. You have to put a lot of data in basically the hands of geologists, and then geologists will try to understand what exactly to do with that. So we help them by already pre-collecting data, by working with it really hard. So, a lot of people ask, so where do you get data? A lot of data is publicly available, but the problem is not the amount of it. The problem is quality and how to train AI on it. Because if you train, for example, your kid on really bad books, I think you'll end up with, kid being a not really good person and all. You give it, for example, a bad example to a kid. The same applied to AI. If you train AI on bad material, then AI will actually do really horrible outputs for you, really not connected to reality. So we work with data, we work with annotation, and we actually prepare it in a such way that AI can, in the end of the day, do predictions. And as drawing to your question, basically we lower amount of output which is needed from geologists, so they don't need to go on the ground on the starting phases. They need afterwards, but right on the start they don't need that. We can scan huge areas globally, which is a big problem for them. Usually they use, old school technologies like helicopters or planes, they fly above it. We can use it basically almost in any part of the world. So with that in mind, we help them to do decisions, because in the end of the day, geologists the head of geology or the head of exploration will do the decision. They will sign the contract, saying that we should go there. So it's a human in the end of the day. But we're helping this human to do a much more informed decision than they used to have before. So that's basically how we lower the time of exploration, and we lower time for them, because one really short thing I have to explain, usually countries issue licenses for that. And there's two different types of licenses. One type of license is exploration one, and the second one is extraction one. And usually they take some time to go for both. But without technology, for example, they can skip exploration and, for example, start a already acquired license for extraction. Or they can do much faster paperwork to applying for both licenses with our knowledge, and not to waste time, going for places where there's nothing. so they can make more strategic and more concentrated decisions in the end of the day.
Got it. So to me, sounds like you are digitizing the part of the process a geologist needs to have in order to explorate some mine, and you are shortening it up with the help of the data you're giving, actually the interpretation of this data. Am I correct here?
Yes, and we also bring something new and more to that. So where some geologists, for example, are not using the gravitational anomalies or magnetic anomalies, and we actually already incorporate them inside of our model. So sometimes, they may be skeptical towards it, but because model is already one build-up product, basically, we actually give them much more than they would anticipate on using their own. Some people believe that geology is really strict kind of a science, where yes or no, but it's actually not. It's more like different schools of thought inside. Some believe in one thing, some believe in others. And it's always changing and always evolving, while we, with our geological department, we're bringing the newest ideas in geology, basically. So we are not only helping them do whatever they are doing, yes, but we're also bringing something new to the table. So we're helping them do even a better decision they would do without using our technology. So in essence, that's it.
Let's talk a bit about the clients and about the users. So like the buyers and the user side. So who, if you can, of course, name those companies. If no, just tell us, give us a hint who they are. Like, who are the companies who are buying your solution, as well as who are the users on the company side? Because I hear that those potentially are geologists, but probably the others are as well.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that the names will give our users a lot. I would just say that there's two types of clients, basically. We discovered the second one pretty randomly, but I will go into that. It's a really interesting story. Well, the first one is quite obvious, right? It's the huge corporations. You can look on them, on their capitalization. They're the multi-billion huge companies. We have some of the clients from them, and what they do, they just scan huge area. They buy up in chunks, like, for example, full regions of a country, for example. We scan it, they pay us fee based on the amount of land scanned, and, off they go. We just give them the prediction, and whatever they do with it is their basically inner decision. We are not influenced in any way. And basically, they are just doing a strategic decision. So it's the first business model. It's a B2B based on a fee model. So they're paying for some amount of data acquired, and then they go. Well, the second one was pretty surprising to us. We started selling. We tried to sell our services to a smaller mining companies because there are a lot. Market is basically fragmented. There's a huge group, small group of huge companies, and a huge amount of smaller companies. So it's a kind of in between, right? There's almost no middleman. And we started to working with a smaller one, and we haven't received any big traction, to be honest. I mean, they said, yeah, technology is interesting, but they skipped us, or maybe let's return back after some time. And then we understood they're really low on capital. So there's not enough money for them, basically, to pay for our services. With that in mind, we have delivered them, we have actually developed, and right now we have 3 projects like that in Africa, in which we provide our services in kind. So, for example, we don't charge them money for that. Of course, we count the amount that we spend, but we don't charge money for that. But we take equity in mines. So we're taking part of their pie, basically, of their project. Wow. And then when they become more bankable, they become more mature, we can either sell it or we can keep it. So the value of our company grows as they grow. So basically the whole idea, we have this, 2 legs in 2 income streams. One, we acquire and we work, and we have a sales force to work with big, huge clients who are paying, us amount for getting huge areas. And there's a wonderful opportunity, there's a multi-billion market for that. And in the same time, we're taking advantage of a growing need in material, because we're taking equity parts in already existing mines in which we are sure. So in future, for example, if you would, when we show that it's working, and for example, we successfully develop several projects, we basically become a kind of a quality stamp. So, if your project, if you want to start a mine somewhere in Ukraine, for example, and you use our services and we stamp it, we believe in you, and we took equity in your project, that means that it is a real deal. So we double validate ourselves. From one side, we use our technology, and from second part, we actually take equity in that. Regarding how liquid it is, so how fast we can sell, it's pretty liquid, because whenever a company is listed on a stock exchange, it happens pretty fast. It's not really long. It's like about maybe 2 years when they have all the documents in order. They can go, for example, Toronto Stock Exchange or in Australia, some Australian stock exchanges. When they listed, we can sell our shares immediately, on the price which is there. So with that in mind, it's pretty liquid on one hand, and on the second hand, it actually allows us to balance our sheets. For example, if we, something happened and we don't have a lot of clients coming from a corporate sector, or, they're not interested in buying big chunks, we sell some equity parts and we still have cash on hands to develop our project. So this is basically the balance we have right now. And as I said, we have 3 projects in Africa like that one of them, which I can disclose, in Tanzania, a really beautiful place. And with bigger corporations, we usually scan the area. It's almost all the time as NDA, and we just give them the data, what we have discovered. So that's basically Chumonu.